so I want to respectfully introduce Jamie and Christine from Find Your Influence. I will let them give you some more background on them as well as their organization. And then, as I mentioned, if you have questions, don't wait until the end. Raise your hand and we'll address them right away. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, so I'm Christine. This is Jamie, and we come from FYI. And we actually launched close to 2 years ago now. And we are a cloud-based solution that helps marketers connect with influencers and anybody names. So it's a self-service solution that we created.
Can you speak up to the air conditioning?
Yeah, absolutely. So at a high level, we're here to talk through what is influencer marketing, why this matters to you as B2B marketers, and then we'll go through how you efficiently launch a influencer marketing campaign and what are the ins and outs of creating a campaign for yourself. So influencer marketing as it relates to content, to what you were just talking about, as B2B marketers, we know that content is king. We need to be creating more content, especially for B2B. The sales cycle is a lot longer. Getting in front of that target audience is a lot more difficult, and so creating an influencer campaign or influencer marketing is crucial to getting in front of that target audience and engaging your target audience. So at a high level, what is influencer marketing? It's a way to target influencers that already speak to your audience, and it's a way to increase your content output without you yourselves having to create it. And it's actually a measurable way to get out content and measure its results. So again, at a high level, the influencer marketplace today, this is on marketers' minds. It's actually been around for a couple of years now. B2C companies have been doing this for years, and it was traditionally, companies that went out to mommy bloggers and asked for a product review, and all of a sudden there was all of this content, and it was the moms that was, buying the products, that was talking about your product and reviewing that product. Well, now it's really evolved to a true channel, a true marketing channel, and it's very measurable, where 74% of marketers right now are saying that they're going to be launching an influencer marketing campaign in the next 12 months. And influencers are extremely influential. So for the B2B side, 42% of consumers are actually looking at blogs before they're making purchase decisions. And as B2B marketers, you know how long that sales cycle is. And so you need to make sure that that content that you're creating is reaching that target audience so that they're slowly researching your brand and able to come back and ask questions and target the audience. So do you guys, I want to make sure that this is very conversational. Do you guys have questions? Does this all make sense at a high level, what influencer marketing is? Do you guys
You can just speak up a tiny bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I know. Okay, so influencer marketing, there would be kind of 4 crucial steps in how you would launch or how you would start thinking about what an influencer marketing strategy would look like. And the first thing you would start with is identifying influencers. So making sure that there are, in fact, influencers out there that are talking about your space and targeting them across blogs, across social media, across LinkedIn. And again, identifying those crucial influencers that you can eventually target for an influencer type campaign. The next step would be kind of marketing to those influencers. So either talking to them through events or reaching out to them through their blog and engaging in those conversations. It's crucial to develop a relationship with that influencer and making sure that they truly understand and are advocates of your brand before they would engage in any kind of a relationship with you as a marketer. And then the next step is really thinking through what that strategy could look like. Is this a partnership? Are they potentially a client that could also help you with content dissemination and kind of partnering with content creation? Or is this truly an influencer that has a blog, that has a significant presence across social media, and you can market through that influencer, and now all of a sudden you have an influencer that has a base that already trusts that influencer, and you can talk through your product through their blog.
When you talk about influencer marketing, are you specifically usually leveraging that within social channels and then within blogs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think primarily blogs. There's also a lot of social channels. So typically you have an advertiser that's launching an influencer campaign. They're talking to influencers and creating content across blogs and across social media, so it's all integrated, it's fully integrated. And as an advertiser, you want to make sure that you're also engaging with that content so that your current base is seeing this additional content that you're having created by this blogger, by this industry expert.
Could you give an example of an influencer?
Just a general influencer. That could be a person that writes a blog and they've been doing it for 2 to 3 years, and they
A specific one.
a specific blog.
No, a specific influencer.
Okay, so I mean, there's a lot on the B2C side. There's the mommy bloggers, so like mommynetworks.com is technically an influencer. All Things D, which is a digital marketing blog, was technically an influencer before they became this major publication, and they still are. They're a blog that's very influential in the space. So an influencer is anyone that has a significant presence and talks about a specific topic or industry, if that makes sense.
So the way people identify them is people who are quoted by others
Yes.
by the influencer.
That's a good way to identify them. And social is a great way to look for influencers. So if you're on Twitter, for example, and you can type in a specific hashtag or a specific keyword around your industry or product, you'll likely find influencers that kind of go over the top, that have the highest amount of reach, and that are talking about this pretty regularly. There's also a lot of other places you can look through directories and that kind of thing, but they're all over.
So it's different by industry, obviously.
And another example, there's a gal by the name of Anne Hadley, who's a specialist within the content sector, and she's an influencer for our particular area. So from a B2B standpoint, that's the type of influencer that you're talking about.
So again, at a high level, what do influencers do? How will they help you as B2B marketers? We touched on a lot of this. So they'll help with content, right? B2B marketers have a couple of additional struggles compared to the B2C companies, and that's lack of time, lack of budget. There's just not enough time in the day to create all of this content that you're supposed to create. So this is a great way for you to leverage influencers to create that content for you. We're also seeing a lot of advertisers that are shifting dollars away from paid search, away from display, because they're seeing this as a way to create content. It's cost effective, and they're seeing results from it. So that's another great way, is this digital vehicle outside of what you've traditionally used. And then obviously they have their own base of followers. So they've been talking to that base for a couple of years. They have their own brand, and this is you now leveraging that brand and that influence to talk about your product. So going back to the examples, I mean, there are a lot of examples, especially on the B2C side, because we've been doing it for quite a while now. But on the B2B side, this is kind of starting to be noticed over the last year or so. So just recently, GE launched an influencer campaign over the summer, and it had a B2C feel to it. So they were, it was the 45th anniversary of walking on the moon, and they were involved in creating the moon boots that Armstrong used when he walked on the moon. So they did this huge influencer campaign, engaged 4 buying influencers to create video content, and then that was shared across social media. And they actually created a Snapchat profile to engage a lot of the users within Snapchat. So it garnered a lot of reach. It also humanized that brand. So just because you're a B2B company doesn't mean you can't engage with consumers or direct to consumers and humanize that brand. I think they did a really great job with that. And then the second example we have here is actually LifeLock, which is a company right down the street, and they do both B2B and B2C. And their campaign was all about thought leadership. So they weren't pushing the product necessarily, but obviously the product was always in the background. And it was all around credit health. So they partnered with 25 influencers and actually co-hosted a Twitter chat. So it gave them an hour period of time to engage with that influencer's followers, and their followers as well. And they actually trended across Twitter for that day for this campaign. And it was, again, all about credit health and tips and questions around how you can really protect your credit. So there's always the bad of influencer marketing. And again, this channel has really evolved over the last 3 to 5 years. And what used to be the norm, where you could just target influencers and ask them for free mentions across their blog, has really changed to more of a relationship. So these influencers have, 30 days to 60 days of content calendars already outlined for them, and they're not looking for just more content or more press releases. They're really looking for more of a partnership. Most likely it's a paid program, or it's an earned paid type of a program. A lot of advertisers are still trying to target the largest reach influencers. So they're going across Twitter and they're finding, that one Twitter influencer that has 1 million followers. Well, that's not necessarily the perfect fit for your brand. So you want to make sure that you're targeting that influencer that's actually reaching out to your audience. So that could be a much smaller blogger, but it's very targeted to who you want to reach. And then in terms of the full-scale campaign, you want to make sure that you're looking ahead of time what the strategy is, what the goals are of that campaign, so that you know what true results or ROI are of that.
So I have a question, and maybe this is naive, but if somebody is a big influencer, they have a blog or something, and somebody wants to use that influence, so essentially we're talking like a pay-to-play, right? So you're paying somebody to leverage their personal credibility with a large audience to push a product or service.
Correct.
Isn't that kind of tough?
In terms of the blogger or the influencer's perspective,
Well, I guess for me, I would consider myself a subject matter expert. It would take a lot for me to kind of put myself out there. Is that where a significant cost comes in? Because I guess to me, it's not just a cost issue.
it's your
It's like my
reputation.
credibility.
It's your credibility and it's your reputation.
Well, and typically these influencers have been doing it for a couple of years, and so they're used to engaging with brands, and they kind of know what that standardized rate is. I don't know if that helps.
Well, and
So I guess it depends on your personal philosophy.
Absolutely.
yeah, like I'm assuming that you would encounter different types of influencers who would, sell themselves a lot cheaper, so to speak. You know what I mean? Where you might have a celebrity who's willing to take a huge payment to just mention on their Twitter feed that they're using the product. Where, as an agency, we actually we tested influencer marketing a couple of years ago. There was a book that came out called Influence Marketing by Danny Brown and I think his name was Sam Fiorella. And so they basically when they launched the book, they had a deal where if you purchased a certain number of books, they would do a guest blog post. And so as an agency, we had a blog for years, and like most companies, we kind of have like upswells in content, and then it kind of loses steam, and then we try to re-energize it again. Even at the peak of when we had our staff churning out lots of content, his one guest blog post had the most traffic out of any blog post. Because what happened is, our team, our PR director Rob included, interviewed him. He interviewed us, kind of figuring out, well, okay, I'm a thought leader in marketing. I have my own blog following. What is that I can write about for your blog that I'm satisfied kind of adheres to what my philosophies are as a marketer, but that still are relevant to your niche and to
It's
me.
really finding a great fit for
Right.
kind of a personal.
Yeah. And so in that regard, he would have never written anything just because we asked him to. But because he's got such a following, once he wrote that and we posted it and he shared it, all of a sudden we had tons of people coming back to our blog, trafficking our website because he has such a tremendous following. And I think when you do that successfully a couple of times, that's how you start to create your own following.
Nice. And the piece that you touched on where you're not accepting any brand that comes to you, and that's what happens in this space, right? So they built a brand for themselves, the influencers have, and they won't accept every campaign that comes their way. They shouldn't. You want to make sure that you're targeting the right influencers, and then they may or may not accept that campaign. And it's because you want true advocates writing about your brand or product, right? So that's where this really, really works.
And with our clients, we typically see that maybe 60% of the influencers will accept the integration. So again, they're keeping their reputation very close to them. And then that's their readership, and they want that readership increasing, not decreasing. That's their own media company.
I would think for the big influencers, in order for them to work with you, you have to offer them something they can't get other places, or they think that what you're offering is really unique and would bolster their reputation if they said, I think this is important. So it's not just, well, we're an agency or we're doing something. There has to be something more, because there may be a lot of companies like you that kind of do the same thing, but unless you have something special, why would they waste their time?
And their product, the influencer's product, is the content that they create, right? And so they want to make sure that they're partnering with the right brands so that it adds value to their readers as well.
So I got lost on something. You guys all know what influencer marketing is, but I don't. But it sounds, from what I'm getting from context, is that you pay an influencer to write something for you, and then you post that on your website, and they post it on, and they like it, or what is the process here? I'm confused.
It's kind of open-ended. It really depends on your company and what you're trying to track. But an influencer at a high level is somebody that's influential in a space, and you can talk to that influencer and see if they want to do some form of a partnership and co-create content. So that content can either live on all of their channels and none of yours. They can live on both of your channels, or they can live on your channel. But essentially, you're looking for the right influencers that are already speaking to your audience, and then you're creating content together and disseminating that content across multiple channels.
And what's it for them? Payment?
Yeah, they're typically paid.
The higher reach influencers are certainly paid. So you're seeing that someone that has 10,000 plus people that are following them on a monthly basis are going to get compensated for what they're doing. And to Christine's point, you can leverage them both ways. So they can create that content that in turn is utilizing their reach, and then you can also use that content to fuel your own brand social channels. So it's a win-win on both sides. You now don't have to create that content yourself every single day across your company's social media. They can tag you in it, and then you're also leveraging that reach that they have to acquire leads or drive traffic to your website.
Because they're posting on your website.
Either or. So they're creating content within their blog, and with that, they're targeting their followers that are educating them on your company.
They're writing about you on their
Exactly.
Exactly. I got it.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Perfect question.
I just wonder, do you think a lot of times influencers, they're actually open to these partnerships because it helps them build content without having to think about it? I think there's some that have to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely value outside of compensation.
And they have their own content calendars. And so the brands and companies are helping them fuel their own content calendars. We as businesses have our own, and so do they. So yes, absolute question about it.
So once you finally go down the route of influencers, again, it's identifying the right influencers that reach your target audience, making sure that you're building those relationships so that they're becoming true advocates of your brand. And then there's the whole earn versus paid. So some of these aren't paid opportunities. Sometimes it's your client that has a blog and you can leverage content on both sides, and that's technically an influencer marketing campaign. Or it's a smaller influencer that's looking to build out their content. They're always partnering with brands that they believe in to create content about that brand, and eventually they can become part of your influencer marketing campaign. So it's not always paid. And then making sure that you're always going back and seeing which campaign worked, what influencers worked, and then adding additional influencers to track.
Is that what is earned, what you just described as paid or earned, second class, that you described as earned? Mm-hmm. Why is it called earned? How is it earned?
So it's earned influence. So they're not necessarily paid for that specific engagement, but it's earned over time. So maybe it's a smaller blogger, and they're creating content multiple times for you, and over time earn that influence without actually having to pay that specific influencer. So the earn first.
So someone could have created a video for you just organically, and over time that video is going to push you it's going to help you rank across SEO, and you can leverage it, but again, it's not a paid to play. Yeah.
So a couple more case studies for you, more on the B2B side that we've done recently. So one was a Microsoft recruitment campaign. And again, it's just outlining that this does work for the B2B side of the business. And for Microsoft, they were launching their Windows Azure product, which is specifically to businesses. And they were actually looking for developer bloggers. So there's developers out there that are just creating content about ease of use and dev talk. And so we did a recruitment effort for Microsoft to look for these developer bloggers. We had a specific amount of reach that they wanted to target across 5 to 10 influencers, and we provided that to them. And they created content around their Windows Azure launch and their Windows Azure product. And then the second one is more on the B2B, the small and medium-sized businesses. So the largest checking company, they launched a checks product that was cheaper for small businesses and it was easier to use it online. And so they actually worked with small and medium-sized business bloggers that created content for SMBs and talked about their products. So I think they worked with 5 to 10 bloggers for a month period of time to talk through that launch and ease of use.
But is it, I guess this is what I don't understand, is the influencer who's actually creating the content?
They are.
Or is it the business that's creating the content and letting the influencer
The influencers create
always?
So you're creating a top level topic or like content calendar for them essentially, and then they're using their own voice to create the content.
So you're not just using their power position to say,
Correct.
push this.
Yeah, just great this, yeah. And then we touched on a lot of this, but these are generally the type of influencers that we're using some of the terms you guys are hearing right now. So there's the whole advocate and citizen. So these are the smaller guys. They're probably already engaged with your brand. They're followers of your Facebook page. They're followers of your Twitter handle. And you can actually create a good advocate program using people that are already talking about your brand to just disseminate that content more. But I mean, they're a lot smaller. They don't have the amount of reach, the amount of influence that some of these influencers that we're talking about have. And then there's really this blogger, professional blogger, where this is where we're focusing on. It's people that have been doing this for probably 2 years or more. They have a significant following, people that come back to them, and they've created that brand for themselves. And then obviously the last one is celebrities. It's a lot more expensive to use celebrities.
So Christine just mentioned some of the areas within influence. We'll jump into more of this professional realm of B2B and how it relates to what everyone in this room is doing. So the B2B influencers are oftentimes IT professionals, marketing professionals, finance individuals, that again are typically employed in the fields that they. So again, a finance influencer is working in the finance space. They have a great reputation, and again, a lot of influence around it. They're often much more niche than, let's say, a lifestyle blogger. So their following is it may be 3,000 versus 20,000. And then we can jump into here influencer strategy in general and how you execute on it. What are the main details? Number one is defining the campaign goals. So what are your goals when you're implementing an influencer strategy? Is it to drive leads? Is it to drive traffic to the website, downloads? There's a wide range depending on your business. So that's number one. And then defining the content and the message. So again, what is that overall topic that you just mentioned that you want the influencers to be pushing? Again, very high level. It could be a tax season campaign, and you want them talking top level about tax season, giving them a little guidance, and then letting them use their voice to execute on that. Getting the real authentic content that you as a brand can utilize again in the future. And then again, defining who your target audience is. Oftentimes, that hopefully that same target audience you're using across all marketing channels. So it's really important, and Christine and I push it all the time with our advertisers, is making sure that you have an integrated campaign. So The topic's very similar, the audience you're going after is similar to your PR strategy, your offline approach. That's how it's all going to get really working together. And then again, from the goals perspective all the way to the metrics. You want to make sure that once you implement those goals that you're actually tracking the success. And we can go into further detail in how that works. Here's a breakdown of the costs that, as we're talking about the different kinds of influencers. So we have a standard citizen that maybe the person down the street that's just writing about a product. We have a blogger, we have more of the B2B influencers, and then we have the celebrities. So the key pieces to note here are that the citizen is a free outlet. It may include you in a blog or a social conversation. The bloggers and the industry professionals or the B2B influencers that we're talking about, they can range from $99 a month up to $10,000 a month, depending on their influence, depending on their niche. What we typically see is with a fashion blogger, a lifestyle blogger, or a mom blogger, you're paying them $99 to around $1,000 to create several pieces of content for you on a monthly basis. And then again, for the celebrity bloggers, we just finished a campaign for Bacardi, and they're in the upwards of $20,000 per engagement for just a couple of images that these celebrities are taking. So again, a very wide range, and then in terms of the reach, the citizens again typically have a smaller following, and then again the celebrities have a million plus followers.
So what's the point of the agreement? So we talk about defining and measuring metrics. Do they have to agree to drive a certain amount of traffic and you don't pay them, or they will do this content? And what's the
Yep, absolutely. So there are terms and conditions that you set, and we'll jump into that here in a minute, but there are terms and conditions that you set right off the bat with the influencers or the bloggers that say, and you can define the goals that you want them to accomplish. And we always recommend that over communicate with these influencers because they want this campaign to be a success so that they're working with you long term. So the more that you can put in the terms and conditions, and what we see is it's a long process. You typically have to work with your legal team on it too to finalize that piece and the disclosures, as well as again what you want the influencer talking about and the guidelines for them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just didn't know what was like common. I mean, I understand you can put together, but
Yep.
common to happen in these types of.
You can actually throw goals on them, and typically if you open those lines of communication, they'll come back to you and say, well, this is what I typically see from this type of campaign, would you be open to doing something like this? So opening those lines of communication will actually make the campaigns significantly more successful.
And that's where the direct relationship is so crucial, and at the beginning, setting the stage for that. And they're all, these type of influencers are all used to that. And then convincing the C-suite. So what we really focus on, as we've talked about before, is making sure that it's an integrated campaign. And at the end of the day, you're hitting the metrics that your CEO needs to accomplish. So again, if you can lay out these goals and task an influencer with particular goals, you're going to back into that number that you need to hit, or that download or website goal. So again, it's all about at the beginning setting the stage for your. Now, I will preface this by saying it takes some time to figure out. It's a new space for a lot of companies. So again, there's some optimization that goes into it for a 3-month period of time before you know what exactly that metric that you need to hit is. But again, it all goes back to it's results based, and because these influencers, you're compensating them, you know exactly what that cost is for that 4 pieces of content, and then you're able to associate it back. And then tracking and metrics, so taking a bigger, deeper dive So we have the ability to track the blog content and the social media content, whether it's through what we call Bitly links or ad server tags. You can track views, shares, you can track conversions as well. And whether you're using a promo code or you're using ad server tracking. But with influencer marketing now, we have the ability to track the clicks, track the shares, track the conversation. So we've made a lot of progress in the space in the last 2 years. Influencer recruitment. So we'll take you quickly through what that recruitment process looks like. So there are a number of influencer directories and networks out there that you can go and search for topics that make sense for your business. And they'll give you, typically they're a paid subscription, and they'll give you influencers that make sense. And from there, you reach out to them and ask the influencers if they're interested in a campaign. There's quite a bit of back and forth from that perspective. When finding these influencers too, you can obviously do standard searches across Google, or you can use hashtags within Instagram and Twitter to find these influencers. There's a number of different places that you can go to recruit these influencers. And then from there, influencers typically have a form that has a field, a contact field, or their email address within the within their blog. So that's a quick snapshot of the influencer process. There is quite a bit of back and forth that goes on to make sure that these are influencers that, again, would be interested in working with brands.
And when you're coming up with that list, it's always crucial to keep in mind that 60% won't accept that campaign. Come up with a large list. So if you're looking to target 5 to 10 influencers, make sure that you have a list of 20 that might make sense for your brand. And then with the contact field, be concise. So if it is a paid opportunity, make sure that you're conveying that within that first email, saying this is what my product does, maybe providing them a URL or a link, because typically you'll hear back from them within that one email or you won't. So it's kind of that one-time shot to hear back from them and get them interested in it.
And then influencer negotiation. So this is where you include your compensation, the campaign dates. So if you're looking for an influencer to work with you for a 1-month period of time, or if you're looking for them to work with you for 6 months, laying that out, laying out the content requirements, going back to the terms and conditions, and all the details that you want included in that. And then again, making sure that you're constantly communicating with them and giving them as much guidance as possible. And with that comes the execution of the campaign. So from an execution standpoint, we always recommend with every influencer you're working with having a launch call or doing a webinar, depending on how many influencers you're using. So if you're a small business using 3 influencers, the one-on-one relationship is huge. If you're working with 50 plus influencers, then that's where a webinar makes sense. And you can get everyone on the same page and get them excited about the program. We with LifeLock had all of the influencers come into we flew everyone out to the location and gave them time with the CEO to ask as many questions as they want, see the office, get excited about what was going on, and then it gave them the ability to go back and talk about the company and the background on the CEO and have it be authentic. But influencers love that. Any way you can check.
How did LifeLock identify who the influencers were? Can you give us a description of what these people do for a living that they are the influencers?
Yep, absolutely. Sure. So for LifeLock specifically, they were trying to target a new audience. So, I mean, their typical consumer was, 50 plus males, and they were trying to target that 35 to 45 female head of household or families. And so influencer marketing was a perfect fit for that specific type of campaign. So they targeted initially 5 influencers that spoke to young families, that spoke to 35 to 45 head of household females. brought them out to the LifeLock offices. They were allowed to live tweet from the event, ask any question that they wanted of the CEO, and that kind of launched that influencer marketing campaign. So it really depends on your goal and what you're trying to do. If you're trying to reach a new audience, influencer marketing is a great way to test that audience because it's cost effective, and you can quickly tell within a month or 3 months what's working and what's not working. It's a great way to help with brand awareness. The other thing is for LifeLock specifically, it was good for reputation management. So it changed that voice online from neutral to negative to primarily positive. So it went from like 40% positive to 90% positive over a year period of time.
And then the other crucial piece going back to it as you're executing a campaign is making sure that all the tracking is properly implemented. So again, ensuring that you're giving the influencers the proper URLs and the codes and going back and forth on that to ensure that the numbers are flowing through properly. And then last, that's absolutely crucial, is having these influencers submit their content back to you for review. And seeing these conversations that they're actually having. So that can be a bit of a process on its own, but you want to see these conversations, you want to be able to tell that story. But this gives you a quick rundown of the process of executing a fully integrated influencer campaign from the recruitment process through the actual execution.
You're not bidding on content, you are bidding on stuff that you want to do.
Yes, exactly. So you give them, you can give them videos, you can give them articles associated with your product. You name it, the more you can find, better. And again,
So you will give them something that they'll read.
exactly. Yep.
Do these influencers spend most of their time influencing, or is this a part-time job and they have I won't say real job, but they have something else that is their main business? Or do they spend, because I'm wondering, if somebody is a strong influencer, how many people can they contract with to do this? They only have, as good as they are, there's still only 24 hours in a day. How many people can the top influencer, any influencer, really work with to generate content? I have no idea how big that is.
And that's what drives up the cost too. To your point, they typically are working with an advertiser or a brand maybe once a week. And we see a split between influencers that were editors in their past lives to, again, those that are IT or finance individuals that have full-time jobs but have developed this incredible reputation in the space. So there's definitely a range, but when you're seeing the following of the influencers we're talking about, it's a very important piece of their life, and they're spending an incredible amount. These influencers are blogging at least 3 times a week. They've been blogging and creating content for years at a time to have the following that they do, or at least the ones that Christine and I work with at FYI.
And the larger guys are probably full-time, and they might even have a team of writers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this used mostly in consumer products and services versus something that's, isn't there any, I guess if I was going to take money from somebody, I feel like I would need to disclose that. Whoever's reading that, so can you touch on that? Does that depend on the industry, or is a lot of that just kind of?
It always needs to, if you're getting compensated, it has to be disclosed.
In the content that you're writing?
Yes, in the content that you're writing. Influencers have the ability to say, this is my personal opinion, but I am getting compensated for this. Within our business, we have a badge code that shows the logo of the business and says, I'm a brand ambassador. And it's that same disclosure, but it has it includes the same disclosure, but again, it gives the brand more weight to the logo in it.
So it gives the logo of the firm that's compensating the influencer?
Yep.
So that kind of negate the influencers?
Actually, you'd be surprised. It's looked at as a It's looked at as a really positive piece in the industry now, and it's because these influencers are working with these brands that they're really promoting, and it's showing that they have enough of a following that brands want to work with them. And that's certainly changed over the course of the last couple of years, but you could ask any individual, any influencer on the street now, or those that are reading their content, and it doesn't matter.
We use the same kind of thing.
Yep.
And the influencers are doing a really good job of sharing that content, and so it's just one small piece usually at the top that says these are my opinions, but I'm working closely with this brand, or I'm working with this brand, so it's not front and center.
Do you guys have any
We do. We have tons of examples of it.
Yep, we absolutely have.
I mean, you don't have to do it now.
We
In the middle.
we can certainly send you. Give us your card, and we'll send you a full deck on examples and case studies.
Who determines who's reading what blogs? Is there a service that's, I mean, because in the print business, say, here's the circulation, here's the readership. Who knows? I mean, just because some blog targets this range of age, how do you know that that's who's actually reading?
Yeah. And there are a lot of tools out there that are trying to solve for just that. So our system provides a lot of background on that specific influencer. It provides all of the tracking. It provides topics that they're influential in. There's also free tools at a similar level, which will give you kind of a high level of what their unique visitors are and what their primary topics are for that blog and where their traffic is coming from.
Who does that? What service? What's the name of that service?
Google Analytics can track that.
Yeah, but if you're interested in who's reading some blog or stuff,
Yeah.
And
It's
see where they're
any-
coming from. You see the pipeline of content distribution, what
into
they're
into
interested
somebody
in.
else's site.
Right, what they're doing inside that website as well.
There's like no governing body
Yeah, there's
that
not.
says this is, there's no BPA of influencer marketing or of blogs per se.
So you can use Google Analytics on somebody else's site.
They have to give you access, or they can publish a report and share it with you.
So
Okay.
yeah, so for our influencers, they're providing that information to us, and so that's visible to the advertisers. But no, I mean, you would have to ask them for specifics around their blog.
I was just going to add, I think Infusionsoft is a great example of leveraging influencer marketing. Is anyone here from Infusionsoft? I don't want to talk about someone else if they work there, but I know firsthand, a big part of their business is their target audiences, businesses between 2 and 25 employees. So they'll find a chamber of commerce and say, we know you have this many members, we'll give you a free subscription to use our product in exchange for at the bottom of all your communication with all of your members. It just has our logo, powered by Infusionsoft, and that's their way of influence marketing. So it's not direct compensation, paid monthly, but it's a trade in services.
Yeah, strategic partnership.
You're exactly.
From my point of view, when you reflect upon how B2B operates, influencer marketing is a more modern way to manage, work with thought leaders. In a lot of companies, if they're in the chemical space or some other kind of product development, there might be a university professor who has kind of a distinguished following within a certain industry, and a lot of times those professors might get paid to perform a study, and then they write a paper about that study, and they present the findings on that study. It's kind of the same concept, but now instead of it being at a conference, in a written paper that's mailed out to people, it's happening online. It's happening in blogs that university professors now, has a following on Twitter, and so people are kind of looking to that person to say, well, what's of interest in the marketplace now? And it's really looking to them to guide people as to what's new, what are the new ways of doing things, what companies are out there with new solutions that people should be taking a look at. And so it's just it's almost like media relations in a way too, where you're sending out contributed articles, and if the editor of a trade magazine thinks that it's interesting enough for their readers, they'll take it on and post it within within their publication. At the same token, they'll take an advertorial, and you can pay them, and they'll put that in their magazine too. People know it's an advertorial because it says advertisement, but there's some different level of credibility because that magazine is deemed it, true enough and informative enough to use as an employer, as an advertorial.
Seems like there's another level here that you haven't talked about, and that is like retweeting or asking them to post on your blogs or liking them. I mean, it's not like writing content, but still engaging with your content.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of back and forth, right? So they create this content, they launch that content across their blog, across their social, and then they tag the advertiser. So the advertiser is then able to retweet, able to engage in that conversation. That one example about LifeLock, the Twitter chat, it was actually a LifeLock industry expert plus the influencer plus the LifeLock's page, the Twitter page, and it was these conversations, and all three of them were answering questions. So it was really engaging. It was a 1 hour period of time where they could actually talk directly to that consumer about questions.
Any other questions around influencer marketing?
Do you have any examples of any influencer marketing campaign that's gone wrong, like B2C or B2B? Just because I'm sure there's some out there that maybe it's a celebrity who's made a used product and ended up getting arrested for something.
There's some old ones, like there's the car companies that engage with influencers when there's bad press and they didn't meet proper disclosures, and then that influencer was fined. So there's a lot of examples, and over time it's obviously evolved into what it is today, where there's proper disclosures. These influencers are more professionals. But yeah, definitely. If you're not managing it and monitoring it closely, sure. You should follow these steps.
And the good news is that these influencers who have 10,000 plus followers that have been doing this for years now know the guidelines and know how cautious they need to be. So a year and a half ago, it was the Wild West, and to Christine's point, the professionalism has increased dramatically.
Question: what do you think the future holds? You said a year and a half ago it was Wild West. What do you think is going to look like a year and a half from now?
Really good question. So as we continue to see offline media and PR reallocate dollars, this is going to content and influencer marketing is only going to continue to expand. So again, it's the reallocation of dollars that we're seeing across channels right now that are going to this. And as advertisers and as brands continue to learn how to measure the success further, this will be one of the number one. And already is, as we know, it's the number one topic with CMOs right now.
Can you talk a little bit about what you guys do at your firm?
Sure, absolutely. We kick it up.
So what we did is we created a self-service platform to help manage campaigns. So again, influencer marketing isn't brand new. It's been around for a couple of years, but we managed our own campaigns on the advertiser side, identifying influencers or managing those campaigns, getting what the influencers need to do to the influencers, and then obviously standardized pricing across all of the different types of influencers and making payments. It's a pretty lengthy process, and especially if you're managing 20 to 50 plus influencers. And so we've created a self-service platform that does that. So we have a network of over 2,000 influencers. They're highly qualified. They're standardized priced across the back end, and then you can easily launch a campaign, select your influencers, make those offers, and then manage payments on the back end.
So something that could take 2 people now takes one individual upwards of 10 hours a month, possibly, to manage it. So it's streamlined the influencer marketing process for the small businesses up to the Fortune 500 companies, whether you're looking for a couple influencers or looking for 1,000.
We would go to findyourinfluence.com.
Yep.
is looking at all the different marketing strategies that I can employ. This is one of them. What do you think the return on investment is in influence marketing compared to some of the other strategies?
So we have a case study that we just recently did for a retail marketplace, and they shifted all of their dollars out of PR and entirely into influencer marketing after testing it based on their cost per lead. So they went from a $10 cost per lead to well under $7 using Twitter, Facebook, and PR. So again, it's all about testing and optimizing the influencers, but
It's moving in that direction. So now we're moving away from content marketing where we develop the content ourselves and we're moving into influencer marketing.
now you can let the influencers help you. So you're still developing content for yourself, but you're not having to do quite as much work.
And getting more leverage.
Exactly, much more reach.
Do you feel like it's diluting the influencer's brand if they have too much sponsored content compared to their organic content? And do you feel like, I mean, a lot of times the DVR's been created to skip commercials, and also even in Twitter you see the sponsored tweets intermixed to organic. I think those get passed quicker than anything else out there. What do you feel like the engagement will look like in even 2 to 5 years from now if there's not enough control on that paid versus organic?
So the answer is yes, and that's why quality is key when you're looking for the right influencer to work with. You don't want an influencer that's creating sponsored content every single day, right? And that dilutes their message. They're probably not reaching the right audience anyways. And so typically, like we mentioned, our influencers are doing it once a week max. And the less they do that sponsored content, the higher they are probably from a quality standpoint. And then if their reach is higher than that, that makes them a lot more expensive as well. So.
The source of the influencers that you're talking about, do they cover business to business also, or is it just business to consumer?
Business to business.
They do.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So for healthcare, for example, these are the influencers, and maybe they specialize in different areas or something. Is that the kind of structure that's in there?
Absolutely. You have healthcare experts that have a large blog that you can work with. You name it in terms of the industry, and there are influencers there.
Any questions?
It seems like it can self-regulate, right? Because if they do too much advertising, paid advertising, then they're going to lose their viewership. So it seems like it would be for them to find that right things.
Exactly.
I just want to give a quick round of applause and take questions. Feel free to post them. They'll hang around for a few minutes, answer any questions you might have. Thanks again. If you have any questions about BMA, feel free to stop up and talk to me.